I heard crying from apartment 16 every evening when some woman came to visit my neighbor. One day, returning from work, I saw her door slightly open, decided to go in and hide behind the door, and was horrified by what this woman was doing to the elderly lady. At first, I thought I had imagined it. Every day, around 8 p.m, a quiet, strained sobbing came from apartment 16. That was exactly the time when I regularly returned from work and climbed to the 4th floor. The crying seeped through the metal door and slowly spread across the stairwell of our old apartment building. At first, I simply walked past, trying not to listen. After all, who was I to interfere in other people's affairs? My neighbor, Valentina Ilyinishna, lived alone as far as I knew. She was an elderly woman about 70 years old, always neatly dressed, with silver hair and kind eyes. We greeted each other when we met. Sometimes she treated me to candy when I helped her carry heavy grocery bags to her door. "Svetlana, dear," she would say in her soft voice, "thank you for helping an old woman." But now that voice sounded completely different. Through the door, I could make out sobbing and desperate pleas. "Please don't, I can't anymore." And then a sharp female voice would be heard. "Stop being dramatic and don't cause me problems. This is necessary." Every time I froze on the stair landing, clutching my bag to my chest. What was happening there? Maybe a nurse was giving the old woman injections, or a social worker. But what kind of social worker would make a helpless elderly woman cry? After a week, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to find out who this mysterious visitor was. One day, I deliberately stayed late at the office and returned home around 9 p.m. The crying had already stopped. But on my floor, I met an unfamiliar woman, about 50 years old. She was hurrying downstairs and didn't even glance in my direction. The stranger was carrying a large bag. "Good evening," I tried to start a conversation. The woman only nodded and quickly disappeared from view. I walked up to Valentina Ilyinishna's door. Quiet sobbing could be heard from inside. I wanted to knock to ask if everything was all right, but something stopped me. What if I was wrong? What if these were standard medical procedures, just painful ones? The next day, I met my neighbor by the mailboxes. Valentina Ilyinishna looked worn out. Dark circles lay under her eyes. "Hello, how are you?" "How is your health?" I asked cautiously. "Fine, dear," the old woman replied, but her voice trembled. "Everything is fine." For some reason, her hands shook as she opened the mailbox lock, and she kept looking around, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. On Friday, returning from work, I again heard the familiar sobbing from apartment 16, but this time, the door was slightly open. Apparently in a hurry or from nervousness, someone had forgotten to close it properly. I froze on the landing, holding a bag of groceries. The voices were clearly audible, and I involuntarily listened. "Mom, how long are you going to drag this out?" the unfamiliar woman said irritably. "I'm offering a compromise. You wanted reconciliation, didn't you? Here are the conditions." "Lena, my dear," Valentina Ilyinishna sobbed. "I'm so glad you finally came to see me. But why do you want to send me to a nursing home right away? Let's just talk like before." So it was her daughter. My heart clenched. I remembered how about 3 years ago Valentina Ilyinishna had mentioned that she had a daughter, but they hadn't communicated for many years. "We hurt each other once," she had said. Unable to resist, I quietly approached the half-open door. I needed to understand what was happening. Carefully sticking my head through the crack, I saw the hallway and then the edge of the living room. The voices were coming from there. "Like before," the daughter laughed sarcastically. "And what was before besides your constant whining, lack of money, and an alcoholic father? I achieved everything myself, despite my loser mother. You gave me nothing in this life." "Nothing." I quietly stepped over the threshold and closed the door behind me, leaving a small gap. The hallway was dark. I could hide behind the coat rack where Valentina Ilyinishna's coat was hanging. "Lena, I understand I wasn't an ideal mother," the old woman continued in a trembling voice. "But can't we start over? You could visit me, we could drink tea together. I waited for you for so long." "I don't have time for tea parties, especially with you," the daughter snapped. "Either you agree to my terms or forget that I exist forever. And if you agree to transfer the apartment to me," she continued coldly, "I promise I'll bring you crackers to the nursing home on holidays." "Personally." "But I don't want to go to a nursing home," Valentina Ilyinishna cried. "I can still take care of myself, and this apartment is everything I have." "That's exactly why I came," Elena replied coldly. "You'll be better off there. They'll take care of you, and you'll leave the apartment to someone sooner or later anyway. So it's better to do something good for your daughter, or are you incapable of that? But Lena, my dear, the old woman pleaded, maybe you could move in with me, or at least I could see you sometimes. I missed you so much all these years. Move into this dump, the daughter snorted contemptuously. I have my own apartment in a decent neighborhood. I want to sell this one and buy myself a studio by the ocean. Do you understand what I'm saying? I stood in the dark hallway, afraid to move. My heart was pounding so loudly it seemed the entire apartment could hear it. What was happening in the living room horrified me. How could someone speak so cruelly to an elderly mother who clearly dreamed of reconciliation? I'll think about it, Valentina Ilyinishna finally said quietly. You won't think, you'll decide, and quickly, Elena replied harshly. I'll come tomorrow and you'll give me a final answer. You've had plenty of time to think. I heard a chair creak. Someone stood up. I had to leave immediately before being discovered. I carefully slipped out of the apartment and managed to dart into my own place just as the door of apartment 16 slammed shut. My heart was still pounding wildly. What I had heard gave me no peace. How could someone treat their own mother like that? All night I couldn't sleep, replaying the overheard conversation in my head. Valentina Ilyinishna clearly dreamed of reconciling with her daughter and was ready for a lot for that. Elena used her mother's love as a weapon, blackmailing her with the apartment and threats of total abandonment. Shameless. The next day, Saturday, I deliberately stayed home. Around 8:00 p.m., the familiar voices again came from apartment 16, but this time the daughter spoke even more harshly. You exhaust me. How long are you going to get on my nerves? The decision is made. Lena, dear, Valentina Ilyinishna begged in a trembling voice. Maybe we can find another solution. A partial transfer, the daughter exploded. No parts, either everything or nothing. You said you wanted reconciliation, so prove it with actions, or are your words just trash? My words aren't trash, I really want us to be together. Then do what I say. I have a friend who's a notary. We'll arrange everything quickly and without problems. I couldn't take it anymore. I took out my phone, turned on the voice recorder and carefully approached the door. If things went too far, I needed evidence. The next few days became a real ordeal. Every evening, Elena came to her mother, and each time the conversation became harsher. I recorded everything I could hear through the door. On Tuesday, Elena moved on to outright threats. You don't understand that I have other ways to resolve this issue. I can go to court and have you declared incompetent. I have connections, doctors I know. We'll say you have memory problems, that you can't adequately assess the situation. Lena, that's not true, Valentina Ilyinishna gasped. And who's going to figure that out? Elena replied. An evaluation, a commission, everything can be arranged, and then I'll get the apartment anyway as the sole heir. Only you won't end up in a nursing home, you'll end up in a psychiatric ward. Is that what you want? I can't believe you're capable of this. Oh, I am, Elena said viciously, because I'm tired of being polite with you. Either you go to the notary with me tomorrow, or I'll make your life so unbearable that you'll beg to be sent to any nursing home. Think it's hard to cause trouble for an elderly woman. Complaints from neighbors about smells, noise, calls to social services. But I don't do anything like that, the old woman sobbed. That doesn't matter, the important thing is filing the complaints correctly. Valentina Ilyinishna cried so desperately that tears welled up in my own eyes. I couldn't endure it anymore. On Thursday, I took a desperate step. When I heard that Elena had come again, I took my phone with the recordings and went out onto the landing. I stopped at the door of apartment 16, gathering my courage. This is the last time I ask, Mom, the daughter's voice came from behind the door. Either tomorrow we go to the notary, or I disappear from your life forever. And believe me, I'll keep my promise about the psych ward. I pressed the doorbell. Silence fell behind the door, then I heard quick footsteps and whispering. Who could that be? No one ever comes at this hour, Valentina Ilyinishna whispered. How should I know? Elena muttered irritably. Go open it, get rid of them quickly, I don't have much time. The door opened slightly. Valentina Ilyinishna's tear-stained face appeared in the doorway. Svetlana, she asked in surprise. Did something happen? May I come in? I asked quietly. I need to talk to you, to both of you. Valentina Ilyinishna looked back uncertainly, then reluctantly stepped aside, letting me into the hallway. In the living room on the couch sat the same woman I had seen on the stairwell, solid-built, with a hard face and cold eyes. She looked at me with undisguised irritation. Excuse me, I addressed her. "Are you Elena's? And who are you?" she asked rudely. "What do you want?" "My name is Svetlana. I'm your mother's neighbor," I replied, trying to speak calmly, though everything inside me was shaking. I don't like interfering in family matters, but I can no longer stay silent about what's happening in this apartment every evening. Elena's face visibly paled. "I don't know what you're talking about." "About this," I interrupted, pulling out my phone. "About how you blackmail your own mother, threaten her with a nursing home and deprivation of legal capacity. About how you promise to cause her trouble if she doesn't transfer the apartment to you." Without wasting time, I played the recording. Elena's angry voice filled the room. "Think it's hard to cause trouble for an elderly woman. Complaints from neighbors about smells, noise, calls to social services." Valentina Ilyinishna gasped and pressed her hand to her heart. Her daughter jumped up from the couch. "You were eavesdropping. You had no right." "I had the right to protect a defenseless woman from psychological abuse," I replied firmly. "I have recordings of all your conversations over the past week. Threats, blackmail, coercion to relinquish property, these are criminal offenses." "This is a family matter," Elena tried to object, but her voice betrayed her nervousness. "No," I shook my head. "Forcing an elderly person to give up housing is a criminal case. And believe me, the police officer will gladly take this on, especially after hearing the recordings." I played another fragment. "I have connections, doctors I know. We'll say you have memory problems." Elena sank back onto the couch. All her aggression vanished. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "For you to leave Valentina Ilyinishna alone, immediately and forever. If you want to communicate with your mother, fine, but on normal human terms, without blackmail or threats. And if I don't agree, then tomorrow I'll go to the police," I replied calmly. "I have all the evidence, plus witness testimony. I'm not the only one who heard the crying from this apartment in the evenings." Valentina Ilyinishna suddenly spoke. This time her voice sounded surprisingly firm. "Lena, leave. Immediately." "Mom, leave," the old woman repeated. "For almost 40 years I tormented myself, thinking it was my fault that we didn't communicate. And now I see that you've simply become a cruel, heartless person. It's better to have no relationship at all than one like this. I don't want to see you." Elena stood up, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door. "You'll regret this, Mom. I was ready to take care of you." "Take care," Valentina Ilyinishna smiled bitterly. "You wanted to get rid of me and take my apartment. That's not care, daughter, that's greed. It's a pity you don't understand that at 40. The door slammed shut. We were left alone. "Thank you," Valentina Ilyinishna said quietly, sinking into an armchair. I didn't know what to do anymore. I wanted so badly to fix things with my daughter that I was ready for anything. "Relationships can't be built under coercion," I replied softly, sitting beside her. "Real love doesn't require such sacrifices." The old woman nodded, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief. "You know, Svetlana," she said, "I'm even a little glad it ended this way. These days were a nightmare. I didn't sleep, barely ate. I kept thinking maybe I really was a bad mother." "You're a wonderful mother," I said confidently. "Some children, unfortunately, just don't know how to value parental love." Over time, our lives changed noticeably. In the evenings, crying was no longer heard from apartment 16. Valentina Ilyinishna seemed younger. We started communicating more often. Sometimes I stopped by for tea. "You know," she said once while pouring fragrant tea with jam, "I signed up for a seniors club at the community center. They have a choir, crafts, and just pleasant people to talk to." "That's wonderful," I rejoiced sincerely. "And also," the old woman blushed slightly, "there's an interesting man there. Robert Peterson, a widower like me. We became friends." I smiled, looking at her rosy cheeks. Elena never appeared again. Once, a neighbor told me she had seen an elderly man bringing flowers to Valentina Ilyinishna. "Well done."